Hey, Adam.
Hey,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm good. Excited to hear you play today. Hey, Bill. Hey, Adam. Hey, Adam.
Hey, hey.
Whoops. I got some feedback.
Good. How are you?
There we go. All right. Let's see here. All right. We got Elias. Hey, man. How's it going? Good. Hey, Archie.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
All right. Good deal. Let's see. Gotta let a couple more people in here. We got Charles in. Excellent. Okay. So Adam and Archie, we'll get you guys' playing pretty quick here. I'll try not to blab too much, I promise. But what we'll try to do is I'll have everybody mute except for the person who's playing, and we'll just give you a good chunk of time. If I think it's going long and I want to have more time for comments or whatever, I may unmute myself and start waving at you. It's not a big deal. Just trying to make it so that I don't go for 3 hours this afternoon like I almost did yesterday or last week. All right. Let's see. I think I'm good. Okay, that's pretty much everybody that I was expecting. I got a few people that are streaming today, so that's cool. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try a little bit different mic setup today. This may be a little bit different, but you can still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Goody. All right, cool. Well, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. So this is our kind of our weekly studio class, just our chance to go over a few extra things that we don't necessarily go over in lessons, and kind of gives me an opportunity to see everybody all at once and say the things that I might say to all of you individually together. And so that's pretty cool. This is also an opportunity for everybody to kind of see who else is studying. We've got 6 people in the room today. Let's see, right now, I think we've got 9 people total studying over the summer in the studio. And there's maybe about 6 additional people that are tuning into the live stream today, it sounds like. So that's a pretty nice opportunity for everybody to kind of check in and see how it's going. With that, I'm going to go ahead and start today with a few things about practicing that I didn't hit last week. If you weren't able to join in with us last week, I've actually got that stream set up on my YouTube page and on my website. It's actually in the blog section, so you can check that out. And then all of the practice organizers and some of the goal organizers that I was showing you last week are also up on that blog. So you should be able to download the whole PDF and use anything that you'd like. If you have trouble with any of that, or you go to find that video and you can't find it, just let me know and I'll send you the link. Make sure everybody gets the information that they need. So with that, I think probably what we should start with today is just a quick little reminder about exactly all the tools that are really handy in a practice room. So I think the most important tool you can have anymore in a practice room is your cell phone. Hey, look, it's time for the summer lessons webinar to start. So the great thing about your cell phone is you can have a whole bunch of tools on it all at once, which is great. However, the not so great thing about your cell phone is it has lots of notifications that are distracting. And as I look at mine in the last 5 minutes or so since I looked at my phone last, I've gotten 17 notifications. Work emails, family emails, text messages, Facebook, all the stuffs, right? So it's really important that when you're practicing, you try to eliminate those distractions. So one of the things that I do is I put my phone on airplane mode. That way I can still access the internet, I can still stream music, I can still do whatever I need to do on the phone, but I'm not being distracted, hopefully, by as many distractions. on the phone. That's kind of a hard thing to do because sometimes it's kind of hard to disconnect, at least for me. And it's also hard when I do reconnect to see how many things I missed. But I think that's kind of an important point to make. So see if you can't find a way to remove yourself from some of those distractions, even though this is a very important tool to have. So the first thing that I wanted to show everybody was actually just some of the really basic stuff on your phone that you probably already all use. I like to use the metronome on the phone. Ooh, that's hard to see. That's not going to happen. Okay, maybe it's too bright. So the metronome's a great tool, and it used to be that these metronomes were not so awesome, but they've actually turned into pretty great things. You can do all these different great subdivisions on here. So if we're talking about subdividing in your head, you may want to pull your metronome out and actually set up a subdivision on that metronome. Some of the metronomes come with programmable things now so that you can, if you're working on a multimeter piece, you can set in all the meters and all the time changes and all the tempo changes even, if you're so inclined. I'm maybe not that great at doing all those things with the metronome, but I think it's a great tool to be playing along with every day. So that's just one little reminder about that. Another great tool is your tuner, and I'm loading up Tunable right now. Would like to use the microphone, we'll let it. It doesn't really matter what tuner you use. It seems like all of them are pretty accurate anymore. Tunable seems pretty great to me because it's got both the active tuner, so it shows me if I'm flat or sharp on the screen, but it's also got a drone tool on it, so I can actually set this up to drone specific notes. This is a D. Great. And so you may hear me talk about drones at different points in your lessons, and we may try to set up a drone for you to practice with. And Tunable seems pretty good. There's like 6 main tuning apps anymore that seem to work pretty well. So it doesn't seem to matter what you use, but it seems to be that most of them are pretty good. Another tuning app that I really like, that I probably have not worked with many of you with so far, is called iStrobo. And I believe there's a free version of this, a soft version as well. But this is like an old school strobe tuner. So those of you who maybe have been in an older band room or remember some of the older band rooms from back in the day, there used to be these giant boxes mounted up on the wall, and that was the tuner. And I remember a band director used to have us all play our B-flat major triad, and then we'd have to try to get the strobe tuner to stop moving to show that we were in tune. That's a pretty tricky task, but one of the cool things about a strobe tuner is you can actually see when you're bending pitch with your chops. So you can actually buzz with the strobe tuner. And you can see all that in-between stuff that is not in tune with anything. And then you can also manipulate tune buzz, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes not. Some of you know that I'm talking too much. Sometimes it's good to know when you're going too far. That was pretty good at the end there. So you've got kind of different levels of tuning here. Over on this side, we've got kind of your greater picture, more or less in tune, then a little bit more defined, and then over here on the far right, you've got the least, the kind of the most microcosmal points of intonation. So that's called Strobosoft. I think there's several versions of the strobe tuner anymore. And one thing that's cool, let's see if I can show you this without dropping everything, is you can see any manipulation you might be doing with your chops on the trombone. So if I hold this up like this and then I play, let's say an F on the trombone, I'm going to stay in the same position, so I'm not moving the slide, I promise. Okay, I'll try to show you like this. And I can actually show you all the manipulation I can do with the chops. So I can, I can pop in and out of different partials and stuff with those manipulations. But if I'm concerned that I'm not actually settled in and in tune, find that perfect place with the stroke tuner like I just did. So at first I was not settled, I was really high, and then I was able to lower the pitch. And you can find that by both manipulating your tuning slide or by manipulating your chops. So those are the kind of the tuning and the metronome basic tools that I think are super important to have a hold of. Another great tool on your phone is recording, and it doesn't have to be a fancy recorder. The microphone on your mobile device is probably better than any of the microphones I had when I was taking lessons in high school or college. So it's a fine microphone. So go ahead and record yourself, video record yourself, check in on those things and make sure that you've got a pretty good idea of what you want to be sounding like. That's a really easy way of getting better. The final phone thing that I wanted to show you, phone-based sort of thing, was related to drones. I love the Cello Drones that are available. These are on Spotify now, but I think I bought them on iTunes years ago. But these suckers are awesome. So this is just called Cello Droning Tune, Cello Drones. And you've got all 12 notes. They're in a great range for the trombone or the euphonium. A little high for the tuba, but that's okay. And it gives you something really pleasant and a great tone, a string-based tone to listen to and have a pretty good idea of what's going on that way. So that's a pretty cool thing as well. So this is called, again, Cello Drones for tuning and improvisation. I think if you just look up Cello Drones, that usually pops up. They're on YouTube now and Spotify and all the free-based services. So that kind of covers my high-tech portion of what I wanted to talk about today. The low-tech stuff is some pretty simple stuff and some not so simple stuff. One of the things that I love is this Portex Inspirometer. So this is a medical device. It's actually used for patients that are recovering from respiratory illness, and it can actually measure the ability you have to inhale through your lungs. And what I do is I actually reverse that, tip it upside down, like all good things, right? And you can put the mouthpiece in the end. You can actually see if the airstream is moving past your buzz efficiently. So there's this ball in the chamber, and if your breath is actually moving past your lips efficiently, then you'll be able to see that ball rise to the top of the chamber. Some of you have worked with the Portex, some of you haven't, but this is a great tool. They don't make these anymore, this kind anymore, and I'm actually trying to get a hold of a new kind that they make and test it out and make sure that it'll work. But this is a great tool, and I'll be finding a good source for a bunch of these, and I'll try to get those distributed out to everybody. Very excellent tool. There's a whole blog entry on my website about these and how great they are. One of the other cool things about these, if you ever get your hands on one, is you can actually check your articulation. You can check your multiple articulation to be sure that you're blowing through it, or just your single articulation. The ball should stay at the top of the chamber and not really move a whole lot if the air is moving continuously past the lips and the tongue's not stopping the air. So all those things that you're practicing, like out of Arbin, they're great to buzz on the mouthpiece on the Inspirometer. So that's one kind of low-tech tool. Another low-tech tool is a practice mute. So practice mutes are great for a lot of things. If you live in an apartment, they're excellent. If you live with roommates that don't want to hear you play all the time, another excellent tool. But what I really like them for is making sure that I'm really blowing, again, past the lips and getting good tone. And they're also great for working into that second partial on the valve. So you can actually overblow on the trombone with a practice mute and start to get that feeling of what it feels like to have the air really used. And then you can take it back a level, take the mute out, and feel like you're actually using your air and your response to that air efficiently. Without the practice mute, that sounds like this. It's pretty loud. But if I take it back a step, use the same airstream, and use a dynamic that's actually controlled and useful, it's pretty nice. And that way, I can actually make my tone improve. And I can also feel like I'm being efficient with that resistance of the chops against the airstream. So this is a pretty nice practice mute. It's called a Schmute. It's the brand. But you can get practice mutes that fit in the bell for about 20 bucks anymore. And the most basic cardboard practice mute is just fine for this sort of practice. And I think it's about 10 bucks at Humes & Berg. So that's definitely an option for practicing. And it also may keep your roommates a little happier. So that is the practice mute. Finally, another tool that I think is really great is the Cutaway Mouthpiece. I think I've got a few people working on Cutaway mouthpieces now. This one's commercially available now. If anybody's interested and wants to know more about this, ask me in your lesson yet this week or in 2 weeks when we got our next lessons. The Cutaway is a great way of practicing your buzzing, except with less material there to give you resistance. So you really have to keep your corners set and have a set buzz. Can't do that if you've got a diffused buzz or you're moving your corners around. So that's something that we may talk about with a few of you yet this summer. The other cool thing about the Cutaway is you can see what the aperture is doing as you go up in range or down in range. You can also have a better idea of what your articulation is doing. I don't think many of us are working on articulation and dealing with the tongue between the teeth, but that's something that happens sometimes in teaching and when you're working with younger students. And so any of you who are maybe working with some of your own students, you may want to think about using a cutaway to make sure that they're not articulating between their teeth or between their lips, especially in the low range. Sometimes I get things, it's kind of hard to show, but things that look kind of like this. You know, like they're sticking their tongue all the way out between their lips. And that's just something to watch out for. And the Cutaway Mouthpiece is a great diagnostic tool for that. So if you want more information about the Cutaway, I have a whole blog entry on that as well. Or just talk to me in your next lesson and we can get you set up with one. So those were kind of my main points that I wanted to make. I'll take a couple minutes here for any questions since that went pretty fast. Does anybody have any questions or want to kind of follow up on what I just went over? Feel free to unmute yourself and yell it out loud. Awesome. Nobody. It was so clear. I know. Really, really well done. Okay, so enough compliments of me. I would like to start. Adam, are you cool with starting today?
Yeah, works.
Cool. So Adam's going to play. What are you playing today, Adam?
The Andante and Barat's Andante and Allegro.
Great. So this is new. You've been working on this since, well, just a few weeks, right?
About a week. I got it last week.
So he's just getting into it. Let's see. Adam is a junior at Lafayette High School now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, put it down wrong. Sorry. And so he's graduated up to the junior level now. So he's going to play a little bit of that. If I wave at you and stop you, that just means that I want to get to some comments. What you can do while we're listening is you can take notes on your own. You can use that form that I sent out via the email, the Google form, if you'd like, to submit some comments, and I'll all that information to Adam as well. It's a way of sometimes organizing some of your thoughts, or just plan on having some comments. The big thing when I open up comments, and I'll show you all how I want it to do this, but the really big thing when we're listening to each other play and then we're providing feedback is that we don't want to just be kind of cutthroat. So I would never say to Adam after he played, yeah, man, that sucked. Because that's not very nice, is it? So what I might say is, like, if I'm, I might want to try to come up with something that he did well. And that probably won't be very hard. Like, I really like that you use some alternate positions, or I like your tone, or the vibrato sounds really nice. And then get into your point that's kind of constructive feedback. Well, I wondered if you could maybe articulate these things a little clearer, or what was your real musical intention at the beginning? I kind of lost you, something like that. And then you may want to end it with another compliment so that that person doesn't feel like you're just saying, again, that wasn't good, I didn't like it, right? So you may want to come up again with something that you did like about what they did. If you're at a loss for what they may have done good, or you want to be a jokester, you can always say, nice shirt. That's a good compliment. So, so with that, Adam, I'll let you go ahead and start. Why don't you blow a couple notes and then hit it? And I'm going to mute myself and get out of your way. Yeah, nice job. Okay, so round of applause for Adam. All right, good, nice. That's a good start on that. So I'm going to give you your comments first, so I can kind of model this just a little bit. So put it back there. Okay. So I thought there were some really good things. My first compliment is nice haircut. Okay, because I'm low on ideas. I'm going to get my haircut on Friday, and I'm very excited because it's been about 12 weeks, and it's time. Okay, so yeah, really nice start on that. I think Barat is interesting because this piece is really it's rather dark and almost like malicious. I think in some ways, especially in this Andante section. I think you could bring that out a little bit more. So I think it's really important to do what you're doing now where you're playing everything in time. But eventually, I think you should get into this function where it's not exactly in time. You're actually speeding up the, gosh, remind me, is it like a triplet plus a quintuplet, or what's the rhythm there?
16th note triplets in a quintuplet.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Whatever that is right now. So you really want to be like very rhythmic about that when you're first starting it. And I think you're pretty much there, although there were a couple of times where I thought it maybe just fell apart a little bit. But then once you've got that really rhythmic and you're really sure of your ability there, then you want to move that into being a little bit more of a flowing kind of vocal style. So I think that'll really help a lot. The other thing that I wanted to point out was that there's definitely these two different styles stuck in the same andante section. One is incredibly legato, very smooth, like that very beginning thing. It's all marked legato. It's all very smooth, which I thought you're doing a good job of. But then there's some other things later on. My memory, I don't have it in front of me, but my memory is that's a little bit more articulated. And I think it can be at least more angular if it's not articulated. So that's just something to think about is like, what's the difference and maybe even why he changed that on you. So that would be just something to think about musically.
All right.
Just another quick compliment. Your vibrato is really matured, I would say, just in the last couple of months. We were working on that with the Morso Symphonique, and I think it's a lot less of the diaphragmatic kind of vocal type of vibrato and a lot more of the controlled instrumental vibrato that I think you want to work towards. So really nice job on that. Sounded good.
Thank you.
Good to hear you. So would anybody else like to give Adam a little bit of feedback? Okay, Elias?
Can you hear me right now?
We got you.
Yeah.
So I wrote them down on paper. So I like the tuning. The tuning was like really well. I played this piece last year, and the tuning can get like hard because you're changing a lot in those in the triplets. And the tuning was like really good. And let me see. It would help, like it's really good, but to take it to like another level, like what Dr. Yates was saying, like if you like add more musicality to it, like if you add more emotion, like it's a really, like he said, dark piece. You want to make it like really, really like, I don't know, sad. And what helped me with that last year was I listened to a lot of recordings for like professional people playing it. And it was like, I didn't exactly copy what they did, but I just like did my own version of what they did. I felt like that helped me a lot figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I like that comment a lot. I'm going to ask you just to follow up a little bit on the recordings comment because I think that's a really important point is to listen to other trombonists play. What was, so Elias, what's your favorite recording of this? Who did your favorite recording?
I think Jeremy Wilson.
Oh yeah, yeah, cool. Adam, do you have a favorite recording?
The only one I've listened to was the Jeremy Wilson one, so I know which one he's talking about.
That was really good.
It's a good one. Yeah, Jeremy sounds awesome. There's a pretty cool. Let's see. Who am I thinking of? Well, from way back in the day, there's a really nice. Totally gone. Who was the teacher at Indiana forever? D. Stewart. There's a really nice Stewart recording of this, and I'm pretty sure that's out on the internet somewhere. It was on an LP. That's how old it was, but I think that's been transferred and it's out, and that's a good one. It's really dark. Might be a little crackly from being old, but so that's a good one. And then another really cool one to think about would also be Carl Lenthy. And I'm pretty sure that's out on iTunes and YouTube and stuff. That's from his audition window CD recording. So those are also good ones just to check out, Adam, and kind of get a feel for the differences, and then you can still pick your favorite even if it's Jeremy. But those are great ones. Cool.
All right.
Good comment. Anybody else have a comment for Adam about what he was playing? Nobody? You can just tell him good things. You don't have to tell him bad things. Or you could just tell him bad things and then say, nice shirt. Hey, Bill, what do you got? Let me unmute you here real quick. Oops.
I got to be unmuted, I think. I got to apologize. My internet connection's been sporadic, so I missed part of Adam's performance. I didn't catch the name of the song, but what I was impressed that he just jumped right in, first guy up, and then I was impressed by his range. There's, it seemed like there's some pretty low notes there, and he, then some real high stuff too. So I thought that was impressive. So again, I'm not that familiar with the song, but I was impressed with his performance.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good comment. Yeah, good job, Adam. It's not easy to just jump in and start playing in front of everybody, and especially on Zoom, it's At least for me, it's very odd. I guess you guys are probably used to it now, but yeah, I agree, Bill. That's a good comment. Well, anybody else have any other comments for Adam? Wow, awesome. Good job, Adam. Nice shirt.
Thank you.
Thanks for playing today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and meet you here, and we'll have Archie hit it. So, Archie, what do you have for us today?
So I'll be playing the third movement of the Grundal trombone concerto. I don't
Cool.
know if I'm doing I might just do like a page and a half of it.
Yeah, that sounds good. And so the deal here, so that everybody knows, is Archie's actually getting ready to perform this hopefully in the fall. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was originally supposed to play it in April, but due to everything, it got moved to November. My youth orchestra director was kind enough to have me share the concert with the youth orchestra, even though I won't be in high school, which will be kind of odd, but I'm still happy with it.
That's pretty cool. And just so everybody knows, Archie is, he's from Nampa, Idaho, correct? Nampa High School. And he's heading to Boise State University in the fall. So that's pretty cool. So, all right, I will mute myself and take it away.
Okay, I'm just going to get set up here real quick.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you blow a couple notes so you know you're ready.
Seems like a good place to stop.
Cool. Yeah, that was great. Cool. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start with some comments here and get people fired off. So, really nice. Really nice. I love Grundal. I think this is like probably the best concerto there is. It's right up there with Rhoda for me. So I think Grundal's really cool. I would just generally say to everybody, like, sometimes I think Grundal gets looked at and it's like, oh yeah, you know, like you could totally do this for a youth symphony audition or like for your audition music for your entrance to college. And then they kind of write it off. And I think I'm going to go back to Grundle this year. I think it's time to make Grundle happen. It's an incredibly complex, really cool piece. And that third movement is beautiful. So really, really well done. Thanks for reminding me about that. So I think a couple cool things. I like some of the positions you're using, some of the what I would call logical slide positions you're using. I think they really make sense. So that's really nice. Your tone is really coming through very nicely, even across Zoom. There's some really nice big sounds happening, and I like that. That's going to sound really good in front of the orchestra. So that's exciting as well. So really nice job with that. I think a couple things to think about just in terms of musicality again. And I always go first, so that's always the one I steal. But, I think there's a few places where you've got these long, beautiful phrases. You're taking a huge breath and you're supporting all the way through, and then you're getting to the last note, and it's almost like you're just like, okay, I'm done. And I don't think it's because you're out of air or anything like that. I think it's just because you're kind of on to the next thing mentally. And that's an important thing. But what we have to do is we have to kind of train our body to, even though we're on to the next thing mentally, make sure that we're still ending the phrase. I think that phrase ending kind of deserves a little bit more credit than it's getting right now. And there's a couple places that are kind of abrupt, especially in Grundle. They're meant to feel a little on the abrupt side, but I still think that they can be given kind of that ending feeling, even though they are abrupt. And so a couple things to think about with that. One thing is, where do you want your dynamic to be when you're at the end of the phrase? And I think right now it's a little mezzo. It could be either a big ending or a low ending, but all of them are kind of the same. And you want to make sure you've got some decisions made about what you really want to do. And then the second idea that I would kind of put forth is kind of this idea of creating your own effect of the hall, or your own reverb, essentially, with your instrument, but also with the way that you're playing and presenting yourself. So you'd be able to go back and listen to this recording of yourself online and be able to see that kind of like at the end of the phrase, your body's also kind of ending the phrase pretty quickly and abruptly. So give your body some room to kind of show that phrase to your audience, and then also give them something to listen to. In a bigger room, that's easier because there will be reverb, there will be feedback from the room, and you'll still have that continuing. But you also want to create that on your own. This is kind of an Irv Wagner idea. Irv's taught forever at the University of Oklahoma, and this is something that he taught me over years. And in trombone choir, he taught me this stuff at ITF over the years. And it's this idea of being your own reverb pedal. So like an electric guitar, you can create different forms of reverb and feedback. And your electric guitar, even though you're in the studio or you're in headphones, can sound like it's got a lot of big room bouncing. And that's an important thing for the trombone that we kind of forget about. So even though you're being definitive with rhythm at the end of a phrase, you also want to give it just a little bit of that presence in the room. And that'll just make you sound bigger. And it also make you sound like you're ending the phrase rather than moving on to the next phrase mentally. So that's just a couple of ideas about kind of phrasing and phrase structure, especially for the end of the phrase. We can talk about that in a couple of weeks at your next lesson too, if you want, if it doesn't make sense. But that's an idea about that. One of the things that we've been talking about was posture, and I thought your posture was really good today. So that just kind of goes to show that when you're performing and you're kind of in presentation mode, you've got an open posture, you're not kind of closing things down or some of those other things that we addressed.
Kind of in a bigger room today too.
Okay, well that probably helps too, right? It's kind of like when I'm in the room with the low ceiling and I'm like, I can't stand up straight. All right, cool. Good job, Archie. Does anybody have any comments for Archie? Yeah, Elias.
Okay. So I thought your tone was really good, and you had like a really mature like sound. Like it was big, but even when you were playing soft, like it still had a good presence in the room. Like it wasn't like a small sound. Like some people when they play, they lose their tone when they play it really soft. And the articulation, whenever it was like legato or like I don't know, like short or staccato or something, like it was still really clean, like throughout the whole thing. And what you could probably work on to make this take it to another level would be the phrasing. The phrasing with like planning your breaths with the phrasing to know when which like phrase is going to start and which one's going to end, like where. So you can plan your breath, so you don't have to like take like a short breath in one space, like where it would sound like not too musical.
Nice. Yeah, good comments. Thank you. Anybody else? Adam?
I'm trying to think of something that'll help, but all I really have is good comments. I really like the contrast between like the legato section and the articulated section. It was like really clear that there was a big contrast, and I thought it was pretty impressive. Also, in all the ranges, the sound was really, really consistent, which is pretty hard to do, and I was really impressed with that. So yeah.
I guess you could say bad shirt if you had to balance
I
it.
guess.
I'm kidding. Okay. Yeah, good. Those are good comments. Yeah, Archie, for sure. It sounds really good. Sounds good. Anybody else? Charles, you have any comments? Rasa? Feel free to chime in if you'd like. Cool. All right. So just to kind of wrap up on Archie, good job. It sounds really good. The next step for you is memorization and feeling confident and all that good stuff. But this is a really good step. You just played in front of a bunch of strangers that know the piece. And that's always kind of like the hardest thing. And now you can go play in front of a bunch of strangers that don't know the piece and feel pretty good about it, right? Cool. So yeah, thanks for playing today. I really appreciate it. It's great. Good job. So this is kind of the format that we'll be going with going forward. So I'll be talking to everybody kind of individually in lessons about maybe playing. If you're interested in playing, feel free to hit me up. There's no requirement to play. This is just something that we can do. It's a great experience, I think, for most people to be in front of their peers and do some playing. And I also think the comments are a good thing. So I would say, if you weren't sure about giving a comment today, try to give a comment in 2 weeks when we do this again. It's a really good way of practicing both kind of your critical listening skills and listening for positive good things, but also listening for those things that you think could be practiced, and then developing ways to help with those things. So again, like I kind of mentioned in the email, we're also trying to be a little Socratic about this and teach ourselves how to teach ourselves. Because at the end of the day, most of us spend most of our time alone in the practice room trying to figure out how to be better. And so the best thing we can do is be able to listen to ourselves and figure out what's wrong and how to fix it calmly, coolly, and collectively. So just a couple little points about that for the next time. So most of you don't have a lesson next week. I think I've got a couple that are going to do a lesson, but most of you don't have a lesson next week, and we won't have studio class like this next week. But in 2 weeks, we'll fire back up with lessons, and we'll have 3 weeks in June with studio class as well. So I'll keep emailing out with a link, but the link should be the same every time. So if for some reason something gets messed up, you should be able to get in just fine. And let me know if you got any questions about lessons in a couple weeks, but we'll keep rolling. It's great to see everybody, and thanks again for joining in. Hopefully this was useful information. As always, I'll make a blog post in the next couple of days, and I'll post the live video from YouTube, and I'll also post any of my notes about the things that I talked about. So, any questions? Cool. All right. Great to see everybody. We'll end the webinar now, and I'll see everybody in a couple weeks. Thanks.